spark your energy as we dive into the revolutionary world of Zolius, the energy of life. Picture this, a world where the beat of your heart, the warmth of your skin, your every movement could be transformed into electricity. This isn't a science fiction tale, but the groundbreaking reality of the Zolius project. In a world where sustainability is more than a buzzword, Zolius steps up to the plate, spearheading an initiative that blends piezoelectric and thermoelectric technologies. This fusion allows us to harness the energy from our bodies, energy that would otherwise be lost. But what does Zolius do with this energy? Zolius is not just about harnessing these energies, but transforming them into useful electricity to power various devices and for more accurate health monitoring. It's about turning the everyday into something extraordinary and empowering us all in the process. Unveiling the tech magic behind Zolius. At the heart of Zolius lies a blend of piezoelectric and thermoelectric technologies. Piezoelectricity is generated when certain materials like quartz or certain ceramics are mechanically stressed. This can be as simple as the pressure of your footstep or the rhythm of your heartbeat. Meanwhile, thermoelectric technology taps into the heat energy naturally produced by our bodies, converting temperature differences into electrical power. In the Zolius system, these two technologies work hand in hand. As you move, as your heart beats, even as your body temperature fluctuates, you're producing energy. Zolius harnesses this energy, transforming it into electricity that can power devices or be stored for later use. But the innovation doesn't stop there. Zolius also explores a new frontier, the use of piezo crystals to generate positive vibrations on the body. These vibrations can have beneficial effects, potentially aiding cell regeneration, improving circulation, reducing stress, and promoting a general sense of well-being. Imagine a system that not only generates electricity from your everyday activities, but also uses the same technology to enhance your health and well-being. That's the promise of Zolius. It's a technology that seamlessly integrates into your life. You don't have to think about it, you don't have to make any special effort, you just live your life, and Zolius does the rest. And the more you move, the more energy you generate, the more benefits you reap. With Zolius, you're not just a passive consumer of energy, you're an active producer. Your every heartbeat, every step, every breath contributes to the energy you generate. And at the same time, you're promoting your own health and well-being. It's a revolution in how we think about energy and health, a paradigm shift that puts you at the center of the process. It's about harnessing the power that's already within you and using it to power your life and improve your health. With Zolius, every heartbeat, movement and body temperature variation contributes to generating power and promoting health. Zolius goes beyond innovation, embracing blockchain technology and smart contracts. This integration allows the project to deliver an unmatched level of data security and transparency. But what does this mean for you, the user? Well, when you're part of the Zolius ecosystem, every heartbeat, every movement, every degree of body temperature is converted into usable electricity. This energy generation process is meticulously recorded on a blockchain, a digital ledger that's virtually tamper-proof. This ensures that your energy contribution is securely logged and transparently accessible. Moreover, Zolius leverages smart contracts, self-executing contracts, with the terms of the agreement directly written into code. These smart contracts automate the management of energy consumption and health data. This means that the energy you generate and your health metrics are not only accurately tracked, but also efficiently managed. But that's not all. Zolius goes a step further, incentivizing your participation with a unique reward system. The more energy you generate, the more you participate, the more you stand to gain. This is where Zolius's integration with blockchain truly shines. Smart contracts enable the implementation of a token-based reward system. For every bit of energy you generate, for every health metric you contribute, you earn tokens. These tokens represent tangible rewards for your energy and participation. Imagine your daily activities, your very existence, contributing to a sustainable energy solution and getting you rewarded. The possibility is not only exciting, but also revolutionary. With Zolius, You're not just a passive consumer of energy, but an active participant in a sustainable energy ecosystem. This is the power of combining the Zolius project with blockchain technology and smart contracts. It's not just about creating an innovative energy solution, but also about empowering you, the user, making your energy count, and rewarding your participation. With Zolius, your energy not only powers your devices, but also earns you rewards. This is the future of energy consumption, and you're at the heart of it. Welcome to Zolius, where your energy is the currency of tomorrow. Zolius is more than a project, it's a community-driven movement. It's not just about the revolutionary technology or the groundbreaking innovations, but equally about the people who use it, contribute to it, and believe in its potential. The true power of Zolius lies in its community. The project places significant emphasis on user and community involvement, focusing on responding to real needs and feedback rather than merely pushing technological boundaries. It's a two-way dialogue where users' experiences, ideas, and suggestions help shape the project's direction. This sense of collective ownership is what sets Zolius apart. The community's role in Zolius goes beyond feedback and idea generation. It's about active participation, collaboration, and co-creation. The project actively seeks out partnerships and collaborations, bringing together experts from various fields, whether it's technology developers, healthcare professionals, sustainability activists, or just curious minds. Every voice is valued in the Zolius community. But what does it mean to be a part of this community? It means believing in the power of human energy, the potential of piezo crystals, and the promise of a healthier and more sustainable future. It means contributing to something bigger than oneself. It means being a part of a movement that is changing the way we think about energy and health. So if you believe in sustainability and healthy living, we invite you to join the Zolius movement. Your ideas, your energy, your participation, they all matter. The more people join, the more diverse and vibrant our community becomes, and the greater our collective impact. Zolius is a project built on collaboration and innovation, aiming to provide sustainable and healthy lifestyles for future generations. It's a journey where every step, every heartbeat, and every change in body temperature contributes to creating a better world. We are building a future where technology serves not only our practical needs, but also our health and well-being. A future where energy is not just something we consume, but something we produce and share. And this is a journey we're taking together. Together, we can create a sustainable and healthy future with Zolius. Join us on this exciting journey towards a better future with Zolius. We've embarked on a path of innovation that transcends the ordinary, converting everyday human energies into usable electricity through the fusion of piezoelectric and thermoelectric technologies. Zolius stands at the forefront of this revolutionary approach, prioritizing transparency and security with the incorporation of blockchain technology and smart contracts. This project is not just about technology, but about people and community. Your participation, your feedback, and your energy matter to us. Zolius is not just a project, but a movement towards sustainable and health-centered lifestyles. Through the therapeutic vibrations generated by piezo crystals, we're exploring new ways to promote healing, relaxation, and overall well-being. The future of Zolius is as dynamic and vibrant as the energy it harnesses. Together we can power devices, monitor health, and contribute to a healthier, more sustainable world. Every step, heartbeat, and body temperature change with Zolius contributes to creating a better world. Zolius, the energy of life.